Welcome to NeuroNoodle's Neurofeedback and Neuropsychology podcast featuring tech legend Jay Gunkelman. He's the man who has read well over 500,000 brain scans, and Dr. Marie Swingle, author of iMinds. Our goal is to provide information and promote options for better mental health. The NeuroNoodle podcast is supported by listeners and businesses just like you. The term brain gluttony and
any clue as to?
Well, here
I'm not eating it, you know. In fact, eating brains is a good way to end up with prion disease. You know, kuru is an issue. Eating monkey brain and ending up with a degenerative brain prion.
Well, I'm sure Dr. Marie will come in and give her version of it, but it was basically how our environment's filled with information overload, instant gratification, impacts mental health and behaviors, including obesity. So I guess behavior modification versus take a pill.
Oh, for goodness sakes, if you could take a pill, just take the pill.
You know, and keep taking it.
It's so easy, you know. But you know, what was it? There was a blood pressure pill that was just recalled for being cancerous. The compounding material it was mixed in with. I mean, what kind of pharmacy puts cancerous crap in the pill? You know, it wasn't the active ingredient. It was a binding agent. So
they're playing everybody's playing the odds. I don't.
I get this toxic shit at half the price. So
I'll take a 1% chance. Instead of working out, give me the pill. I'll take a 1% chance. So you're playing odds, I guess. And
yeah, you know, there are people risking new approaches to weight loss with pharma that really don't have well-known long-term outcome, and they're trying to find additional things that the drug can be used for addiction and things like that. And I, you know, when there's terms like Ozempic face, Ozempic butt, but you know, independent of what it might look like, what I have no clue, and nobody does yet, what a long-term consequence is going to be. And you come off of it and balloon back. I mean, that's a yo-yo thing and a long-term dependency, which I'm sure is perfectly good for the drug company. You know, I mean, you know, got another one hooked. You know.
Well, it got into talk therapists trying to change behavior versus again taking the pill. Like if I'm not, as long as I'm not hungry, that's all I care about. Can I flip that switch? And that gets to her friend, you know, the anterior cingulate, and you know the different ways to flip that switch, and it just
Yeah.
referring. And who can make the most money and the least money doing that?
You know, Dirk De Ridder has no vested interest in the outcome of research, and he's as honest as the day is long. MD, PhD, neurosurgeon. For God's sakes, you know, they did neurofeedback at the anterior cingulate, and this specific technique provided a change in craving in individuals that had eating disorder. So it's entirely possible to flip that anterior cingulate obsessive compulsive drive, motivational drive, appetite. You can flip that. And I'm sure there's probably pharma that can flip it, but my caution would be, where the hell is the long-term outcome study?
Dr. Marie
You
started
know,
it all last night with brain gluttony. What did you mean by that, Dr. Marie? I gave my best explanation.
Well, I mean, I was going with, food analogies. And one of the things, I mean, I first kind of came up with that term when I was looking at excessive screen time. Okay. And the example that I actually used is obesity, in terms of what is going on in the brain when people continue to consume post what should be certain messages of not just satisfaction, but satiation. So, there's a bit of a semantic play. Is there a difference between satisfaction and satiation? And how is that regulated in the brain? Again, going back into I think this is an example everybody understands that, you're looking up information. You have the information you need. Okay. Yet you continue to search and search and search, whether it's a pair of shoes, you found, all the variation of prices. You've been looking for 20 minutes past when you got out that information. You're still looking more and more and more. Okay. And again, we can flip that into the analogy that I use was hunger. Okay. You had your protein, you had your carb, you had a nice dose of sugar to just get that at the end, but you continue to consume. The $1 million question is why. And of course, Jay and I both agree on the cingulate, but there's something else going on. And obviously, I mean, Jay can take over as the expert here, but why do we consume past not just satisfaction, but satiation? Like what makes us continue? And that, of course, is where the trauma potential comes in. That's where anxiety comes in. There's a
yeah.
really, really old saying, and everybody knows it, and it's a beautiful one. It's not what you're eating, it's what's eating you. Okay, so none of that is being addressed if you pop a pill. Now, again, in our culture, everybody just wants a pill to solve their problems, and I get it. We're all busy. Good God, trying to abstinence is a lot easier than restriction and control, et cetera, et cetera. We all get it. I mean, you don't have to have experienced obesity to understand, some of the difficulties of restraint and restriction. And I think we're nasty to judge people. There's something much, much bigger going on in the brain. And it's not, I would argue strongly, it's not just one thing.
Yes.
We'd be solving all of this in a nanosecond.
It's
And I
like a
think it varies.
DSM category,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah. And I dare say, I think it varies by person, you know, or even within person. I mean, you think you have it, you got your original trauma. I mean, the one that every clinician knows about is women who have been through horrible sexual abuse, essentially hide their bodies within their bodies, to not have any risk of being sexually attractive or being predated on. That one everybody kind of knows about. And you dig that out, you quote unquote solve it. Okay. The individual loses some weight. They're all tickety boo. And within X amount of time, it's back on. It's deeper. There's more. And whether, did you light up certain pathways that are now meshed with the original trauma? I mean, it's fascinating work from a therapist perspective, but my fascination doesn't really help the people.
Yeah.
But, you got to look.
Oh, frozen. Either that or I am.
No,
Oh, okay.
it's Botox screen.
You froze for a moment there. So,
We'll
Yeah, it
edit
was
that
um,
out post.
let,
screen
let, let,
Botox. Oh, love it.
let's say we're paying attention to the internal processes of, you toss some food in your mouth and you salivate and you chew it and you swallow it, and at some point you get a feeling of fullness in your stomach. Now, not everybody has the ability to sense internal state if they have had trauma to the point where their insula is disturbed. The
Yeah.
insula is your interoception, and when it's not working, you don't have perception of visceral it's not proper perception. You have misperception.
Mhm.
So, you may feel empty when you're not, and you may miss sensations. So, if you actually look at obesity, there can be a thyroid problem. There can be, just all sorts of genetic factors that can enter into it. But there's also all of these behavioral circumstances. Again,
Mhm.
trauma being one of the more prominent. But the treatment at the anterior cingulate also taps into the insula. That's part of the same network, and as such, the anterior cingulate's obsessive compulsive drive doesn't have a "I'm full"
Yep.
shut off, and without the message that you're full and satiated, you're going to continue.
I want to
So
add something else there, though, too, that there's, think that this is a larger cultural issue in terms of our being less in tune with ourselves and our bodies. I mean, it's great that everybody's doing mindfulness, but I think we need to take it down a few levels. I think people, again, I'm going to use another reference, what some of us call the sleep train. When you're at home, relaxed, it's a certain time of the evening and you feel that fatigue, okay? Catch the sleep train, go to bed. And if you don't catch that train, you essentially, I call it, you go into a second run or a little bit of hyperarousal. You just do a little bit more, you've missed the sleep train. And then it takes so many hours again before you feel the fatigue. And at that point, it's not natural fatigue, it's exhaustion. So that's one of the things in terms of sleep. But I'd say it's very similar to eating, that many of us, I mean, it's very obvious in most children, okay? They're full after a few bites and they just stop, okay? But many of us, we get that sensation, but oh, it's so good, I'm just going to continue. And you miss what I call the cessation train, or the satiation satiation train. And once you've had a few bites past that, the message turns off and you eat a whole other portion. So I think we're not in tune. And that's doubly so if we're watching television or on any screen-based device. We do know that a lot of screens, etc., they act as pseudo analgesics, meaning you don't notice other things. So I say, along with neurotherapy or biofeedback at this point, to become more aware of self and the natural messages that your brain and body give you. Okay, stop competitive practice, meaning stop the practice that does not permit you to be in tune with your body and hear the messages. I think it's really, really basic. Like, don't eat with distraction. You'll get your turn off.
Jay, you got a big dog. I had a big dog, and
Oh, they're
unless I,
different.
unless I pulled them away, yeah, there we go. There's Sky. Now I don't know how Sky eats, but my experience around dogs is if you don't pull them off the food, they won't stop eating. Am I looking at that the right way?
not all dogs.
Yeah,
Um,
bingo.
Okay, just
uh,
mine.
with
It's fiber.
he can free eat and he doesn't overeat,
Mhm.
but there's no competitive eating. There's nobody else taking his food. We have quite expensive food for him, actually. Dried lamb out of New Zealand.
Oh my.
Uh, so, um,
But the trauma, my in-law has a dog that will not. It's a rescue dog,
yeah,
and
Mhm.
you
there
can't
you
pull it
go.
away. So okay. So that's where the
Yeah,
trauma comes in. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
yeah.
Or just learning, if you look at individuals that come from very, very big families, okay? And I'm not even talking about families that had any type of food deficit, okay? You had to grab whatever you were going to eat when the plate passed you because it was never coming around a second time, right?
But I
Mhm.
can reach all the way to the other side of the table We had 6 kids,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, there's learned behavior as well. But
yeah.
dogs, I think, they're good examples and they're bad examples, but definitely by breed and by circumstance. Some dogs, most people assume, or the stereotype is dogs will not stop after their bellies are full, but cats will. Okay. But, certain house cats, no. But I think it's the perception in animals of available food, right? So.
Cats are too damn picky.
Yeah, they pick whether they love you or not. Dogs adore you, whatever you do.
Yeah, why is that, Jay? Can we do neurofeedback
There,
on dogs and cats?
Oh, there's some funny stories there.
there are actually people that have recorded EEGs in cats, including Dr. Sturman,
Yeah, yeah,
where he started with cats.
yeah.
Um, so,
Well, it's
and
funny, we talk about how people align with their pets, and I say this really, really affectionately in terms of, we give home protocols and things, and they're mostly auditory harmonics that we know influence the brain waves. I mean, we test everything in clinic, so we know exactly what they do. And people will come in and say, "Oh, my pet isn't as anxious," and they're listening to it together. Well, I think most of us are very, very aware that if the owner quiets, the animal quiets. But it is kind of cute to think that the animal is getting the therapy as well. But horses, I mean, anybody in horse training, there's an interesting phenomenon in terms
What's different about horses? Of course,
well, well,
they start
horses are
talking to
very
you.
skittish by nature, right? And in terms of, some of the things that people do to help with the quieting and yet precision of race horses.
What do they like? Goats.
Sorry?
Goats. Horses like
Goats.
goats. They put goats in there to calm them down.
Oh,
Just a buddy.
I don't know. There's also goat yoga for humans. I don't know. Maybe there's a little novelty there.
Or,
They're cute. I don't know. Jay, do you have any idea of horses and goats? I have no idea.
no, all the goats we have to eat grasses around where the dogs run are kept in an electric fence, and they warn people that if your dog is loose and get in there, that the shepherd actually has the right to take out a dog if they're in there hassling the goats. So
duly noted.
in the park, people leave the goats alone,
Mhm.
and
Okay, Jay, another thing popped up anonymously. Trump Derangement Syndrome. Because, it's election time.
it's
Triggers.
political derangement. It
Yeah.
happens seasonally every few years, you know.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
What?
And it's most intense on presidential elections
Yeah.
because there's that added extra level of it. But every 2 years you end up having a smaller version of it where Congress is, and some of the senators, but mostly every congressman has got a 2 year stint. So
But is it like people take it personally or it's their identity? Like what is
it's
going on?
uh, you'll notice people brand things. It's like teams, and the color of a hat,
Yeah.
the color of a sign, uh, um, this is Reds against Blues. I mean, it's archetypal and it's classic.
Yeah.
And the two parties typically approach things with a bit of a different approach.
Mhm.
Uh, there's a lot of limbic approach from one party, and there's a lot of top-down cortical approach from the other.
Yeah.
And you have to
Wait,
remember that the limbic system can hijack the cortex
Yeah.
anytime it wants.
Yeah.
So it's it's an interesting game to watch. I'm
Mhm.
when I lived in North Dakota, I was considered pretty liberal. I mean, I ran the head shop in Fargo in 1969, so I was liberal for there, and I'm in
Right.
California, and my political beliefs are a little bit more conservative than some people out here. So, and when I moved to California, they asked me, well, what party, you have to register. And I said, what business is it of yours what party I'm in,
Yeah.
and they put decline to state. So, uh, um, I can't vote in a lot of the primaries, but any real vote, I get to cast.
I mean, the other
Uh,
thing we have to kind of acknowledge here is the popularism versus elitism. Okay. And I think the same thing as Jay was saying, the fact that this is in two camps. And my concern as somebody looking from the outside, and you'll find that most individuals that are not American are very, very concerned about this. And I think this even came up with Sarah Palin, way back is are you voting for somebody you'd like to have a beer with? Or are you voting with somebody, or in this case, go to McDonald's with, or are you voting for somebody that you actually want to run the country? And there's a lot of convolution in terms of, what a president is. And I mean, from the outside, it's fascinating to watch that individuals are confused by, potentially a power, likability, as Jay was saying, an archetype, like that Trump is gangsta, or all these things that are going around. But is that's very different in a comic book than running a country,
Yeah.
and the rest of the world would really appreciate that you do not elect a comic book character.
Well,
yeah.
when you say rest of the world, you mean outside of Canada? Because
Everybody
BBC
is just
doesn't feel that
watching
way.
this. You have
Australia doesn't
you
feel
have
that way.
no idea how you're being viewed in the rest of the world. You're being viewed as, a cultish lunacy. And the fact that this is even occurring, people just do not understand the mentality of, whatever percentage of the US population that's enraptured with, I keep on calling a comic book character. And just this Americans are very, very
They're,
proud, the leader of the free world, et cetera, et
they're
cetera, and
all comic
everybody's
book
going, yeah,
characters.
Yeah.
leader of the
Well,
free world, and they're going to elect a comic book character and give him nukes.
Ever been to Parliament?
or
Well,
go to Japan and see them throwing chairs and having fights in the
yeah.
legislature. I mean, the
Or
pu-
Britain, we've all had our thing, things go wrong everywhere, but there's wrong, amusing, and then there's this.
Well, it's whatever
yeah,
triggers and whatever the advertising that's out there, getting back to iMinds, whatever,
Yeah.
whoever's spending the money to get that fraction of
Yeah.
your attention to set
Yeah.
it off. And that's kind of where I'm going with people take it as
yeah.
an identity. Whereas
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think,
I wrote about that eons ago, actually. I actually wrote about Trump, and I think it was 2018 when he was coming on the stage, and everybody is, oh, this man is uneducated. He never reads. He just watched television. And I'm like, people, he's not watching television. He's studying television. Okay. This man was trained on media and essentially social media. And it was a brilliant strategy at the time, maniacal but brilliant. Mhm.
advertising
So
is maniacal.
Yeah.
so our Crumb has an early coverage of Trump in a cartoon series that he did.
Mhm.
I don't know if you're familiar with it at all.
No, no.
Uh,
It gets lost in all the memes, Jay. There's so many different, whatever silo you want to hang out in. I like to hang out in both because I think, if you keep quiet, you lose debate, and
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think that's what this country was made on is debate. I think any good country is,
yeah,
state your point, give your,
yeah,
have it respected, and if you just, if you're a yes man or yes woman on whatever, then I think you're a lesser country
yeah,
for it. I'm just trying to think the mental health aspect of what's going on because a lot of people are fired up right now. It's like this is
oh
their
yeah.
be all end all.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Well,
yeah. The
yeah.
Armageddon is coming,
Oh,
so
Y2K.
fear is the best way to get
yeah,
people going, right? Mm, yeah.
and
I could go on
the
and on.
literally a call to arms,
Yeah.
and that which can be quite dangerous.
Hmm.
You look at the number of people that were and are continuing to be sent to prison for various lengths of time for acting out the last time this happened. So
Yeah.
Right.
I fully expect that or more. I mean they're having a pretty good run up to this. We'll see.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I mean, hopefully we can get an exhale or we don't have Dr. Murray, I think your business is going to pick up at November 6th.
The funny thing is, I'm actually going to be in the UK when all this goes down.
you know.
Yeah. But you know what? Actually, Canadians, we kind of had a little interesting situation the last time that a lot of Americans were essentially going, well, if Trump wins, we'll just move to Canada. Like this whole expectation that Canada is just going to open our doors.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good luck
You
with
have a bit
that.
of a problem with Mexico.
What's
Okay. We have a
what's
bit of
wrong
a
with open
problem with the
borders?
US. Sorry?
What's wrong with open borders, Dr. Murray? You're not a
Well,
fan of
we
that?
actually have the longest open border in the world, and I think we should keep it. There's something really beautiful about the relationship between US and Canada. But the
Yeah.
naivety of a lot of Americans that, oh, they'll just be able to go anywhere if something goes. I think a lot of Americans are going to get a taste of their own medicine in that regard. It's hard to emigrate.
Jay, you've been
So
on the conservative side and the liberal side moving around. Do you see more money getting into the system depending on the politics, whoever's in the White House? More for
well, when they opened it up through PACs and anonymous funding and stuff, yeah, the the level of spending has gone up exponentially, and that doesn't necessarily make it any better.
I mean,
Uh,
funding for mental health. If you have
oh,
a liberal president versus, a
well,
congressman at the whole.
the ACA did end up making coverage for addiction treatment and mental health much more of a parity, and they're supposed to have parity, but obviously that's a hard fought one step at a time sort of a thing. The parity is the equivalence of payment for one kind of a disorder versus another. You can't expect the kind of payment that you have to put down for genetic treatment. Um, Sickle cell anemia. Okay, there is a CRISPR edited genetic fix for it. It costs $2 million for the treatment,
Yeah.
but it fixes it. Look at how many people have sickle cell anemia. You know, that, how many people do you think are going to actually get treated? you know, uh, it, it's uh, however, I have to say that of the two scientists that came up with the CRISPR way to edit genetics, one of them is a professor at UC Berkeley, and she's trying to make all of it available at a reasonable cost and easy access. Um, uh, uh, so I don't think all of the pharma is actually going to be in control of things. The she's she has a university academics approach to things, and it doesn't really have the same level of financial drive that you might see from a pharma expecting single treatments to be $2 million.
I have to jump in here, though, again, from the outside world perspective. The the major issue U.S. has is lobbying and the power of big pharma. The cost of medication in the US is double, if not tenfold, to other countries. Yeah. And it just, for the rest of us, we just don't understand why you agree to pay this much for your pharma when every other country has negotiated. Why does the US not negotiate their pharma prices? And you complain about the cost of insurance, this, that, and the other, but you don't negotiate. I'm not sure it's every country, but so many countries.
Until very recently, it was illegal to negotiate.
Something's
And
backwards
that
here.
was obviously a law that was passed with a very greased palm. Congress, for their salary, end up a lot richer than you might think. But
That's a big flaw.
insider information ends up, you can invest in an industry. You hear things, that but it the
all these
actually
positions pay 100 grand or whatever it is, and they're all multi-million
Sorry, who?
millionaires. There's only so much you can make from a speaking engagement.
Oh, you mean physicians?
No, Congress.
Congress.
It's not against the law for them to use inside information to make stock trades. So they get this information, they place the bets, they make the money, and there's
Well, I
no
mean,
term
I
limit,
have
so
a
they
few
stay there forever.
attitudes that I think teachers and politicians should be paid outrageous salaries so that we get really quality people in there. And they should not have, a promotion by seniority. It should be promotion by proof. I think that would solve a lot of things. But like right now, who wants to be a politician?
So
Somebody who
there
really, like the
there was
motivations.
actually a fairly strong early attack on Tim Walz because he didn't have any money. And then they said, oh, well, but he's got a pension. Okay. Hopefully anybody can have a pension. It's a good thing, But he's the poorest person ever to run for vice president. Historically, adjusting for cost of living, he's basically dirt poor by comparison. So, and that he's got a comfortable life as a governor in Minnesota. Apparently, it's not a very profitable circumstance,
Yet. Well, it's hurting my mental health.
Good digression.
So what? You got to learn to breathe, HRV.
I think there is something we should. I think this is a time to really take care of oneself, right? I mean, it's so easy to get riled up at things.
I wish there was an app that I could use.
Yes, there's definitely an app for that. It's called the Swingle Sonic NeuroNoodle app. Do you want to promo me there, Pete?
The link's right here.
Now, Dave Seaver has glasses that you can put on that flash, and they're kind of mirrored. If you walk down the street wearing those, it'll give you a certain perimeter.
That's all we had from yesterday. It was a slow news day yesterday. All we have is the election coming up, and the politics kind of hit me when I saw the people standing in line to early vote in my neck of the woods. And of course, I got my online ballot where I just drop in. I walk up, drop in, but a lot of intense faces. Like this is like a line in the sand, and
it is.
I just wish they would take half of the passion and put it into their local elections where they can have more of a oomph on their vote than they do in this national stuff. This national stuff is just good for Facebook and Instagram. Whatever.
Yeah, city councils that are not partisan, school boards that are nonpartisan, those are where the quality of life in a town actually is run. Occasionally, there's a charitable foundation, which is always a nice option. We've set up charitable foundations for the industrial settlement funds. Um, because I'm kind of a balanced person, there was a power plant proposed for the little town that I was in, and for 8.5 years I stopped it, and half the town hated me then. And I negotiated a settlement and re-engineered the power plant and ended up getting it built. And the other half of the town hated me then. Now, I think it turned out fine because the $30 million that we got for the town of 3,000 people, all the people that hated me on one side or the other are standing in line to get the funds to spend on things in the town. So I think it turned out just fine.
There you go, Dr. Marie, brain gluttony.
Yep.
Dr. Marie Jay Gunkelman. Jay, get some rest. Get more rest.
Hey, I got a full day in front of me.
All right. Take the break. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
All right. Go Canada. The NeuroNoodle Podcast is supported by listeners and businesses just like you.